Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Gil-Kist Nation Sports Talk about the NBA. I'm your host, Wolfgang, and it is playoff season, so we are going to discuss about the teams in the postseason. We'll primarily focus right now on the Western Conference. We're going to size up the teams a little bit here, talking about who they're playing, of course, and basically give a quick little rundown on each of them, what their potential is, and what they can muster all the way through the NBA Finals. All right, we'll talk about hope, and we'll also talk about, well, the disparity and the weaknesses that these teams have. Let's get started, of course, with the number one seed, which is going to be, the best team in the NBA that has been for the last half a decade, practically. The Golden State Warriors are looking to make history yet again by winning yet another title here and getting what we would consider to be a three-peat, right? Are they on a three-peat run now? They're going for three. They are going for le triple. This team is obviously going to rely on Curry. Curry has to be the main man. When he goes down, so does the rest of the squad. So this team has to be very healthy throughout the playoffs in order to find success, or they'll have to have somebody else step up. But of course, we know with this team, the main thing is, can they continue to shoot well and score on the offensive side behind the arc? Their main specialty is shoot the 3-3-3-3. And that's what they're going to do and to be successful. Now, they will be tested throughout, in my opinion, because they're a team that can be locked down on a defensive side. But the main thing will be who can outmaneuver them. They're going to go up against the Clippers first, who ideally they could, if they play well, they could easily sweep them, believe it or not. And ideally the next matchup would be against either the Rocket or Jazz, who both teams I think will give them a big run for the money, especially if it happens to be the Rockets. If we look down to the Western Conference Finals, I think their opponent would be a lot easier, and I don't think they'll be too challenged, so they can have an easy route in that Western Conference Finals. And then, of course, in the NBA Finals, I think whoever they do play will definitely give them a tough time. But that is, of course, if they make it that far. We expect them to win it all. There's no other pick that would be easy to choose other than the Golden State Warriors. Now, like I said, their biggest matchup is going to be in that second round. Ideally, they will play the Rockets, and ideally that will give them the toughest time to be able to advance. So that'll be the series we hope to see and want to keep an eye out for should it come to fruition. So if we move on and talk about the next team here, you have the Los Angeles Clippers. The Los Angeles Clippers are a very unique team, a team that's playing with house money, as we would say. They're going to rely heavily on their bench with Mr. Harrell and, of course, with Mr. Lou Williams. The main thing we need to see from this team, really, is consistency with the starting lineup. They have pretty much average Joes going in there. A lot of young guys is the main thing in their starting lineup. And these guys all just need to be able to stay consistent, not turn the ball over is the main thing, and just play pretty smart and pretty strong, especially on the defensive side as well. We've got to expect a huge performance by Mr. Patrick Beverley on the defensive end to really step up and shut down the guard play on the opponents. That's going to obviously have to be against Mr. Curry or even Mr. Thompson, so that's going to be tough. But that's what needs to happen. Rebounding is going to be a big thing for this team as well. They're going to have to really step up to get the rebound, but the main thing they need to do is be able to play defense behind the arc and be able to score from behind the arc, and that's not something that this team is very unique at doing. So it's going to be tough, but they do have hope. They do have some really good natural scorers, but all these guys got to step up, especially in the starting lineup, Mr. Gallinari. He's going to have to put up some 25-plus performances by the night. Him combined with Lou and Mr. Harrell putting up, at least 50 combined, respectively, between the two, that's going to give them about 75 points. And then just getting the rest of the guys on the team to contribute should put them in position to keep up scoring. Because against the Warriors, let's face it, they don't have much chance if they can only score about 110 points a night. They're going to need to put up almost 120 every single time to be able to win. That's a pretty tough task for this team. But if they want to advance just out of the first round, they're going to need to do that even going into the second round. This team is going to struggle no matter what, the way you see it. After all, they are an 8th seed. But like I said, they are a house money team. We don't really know what to get for them because they have nothing to lose here. And they have everything just to be able to prove and show us the biggest wild card team in the postseason, your Los Angeles Clippers. They'll be a fun show no matter what to see what they can produce. So it will be exciting. But for them, hope is, well, not at the pinnacle part or not even at the peak of the mountain. It starts at the base, but you never know where they'll end up. All right, the next round of opponents that they would have to play would be the Rockets, ideally, right? Now, we know the Rockets are leading by the main man, possible MVP candidate, Mr. James Harden here. Now, this team, we know the main way they're going to succeed is by shooting the 3 ball. They've had some historic games this season by scoring those threes. Now, they're going to have to keep this up. They got plenty of guys on their team that can do this. Obviously, we got Harden and Chris Paul, but if you look into their depth, you bring in Aaron Gordon, you bring in Austin Rivers, you even bring in Mr. Green, and this team is loaded with some 3-point shooters who can perform well, and they are going to be required to be able to do this in order to be successful. The 3 ball by Mr. D'Antoni's way is the only optimal way this team will succeed. Defensively, they will be all right in my opinion, but once they go up against those Warriors in that next round, it will be, of course, a tic-tac-toe type of series here, down to the wire, and it's gonna really come down to them being able to lock down that 3 ball in my opinion. This is a team, though, if they can get past the Warriors, it is inevitable for them to reach the NBA Finals, which would be very exciting to see this Rockets team against whoever they play in the NBA Finals. So let's hope that they are able to actually get over the hump this time, but they are going to be in a very interesting position, even now, against their current opponent. All right, like we said, defensively, this team should be okay for the most part. It just depends who they go up and match up against. The deeper the team, perhaps the more difficult it will be for them. But against a pretty easy 5-on-5 unit, they should be okay. Let's look on now to their opponent, which would be the Utah Jazz. Utah Jazz are a very interesting team. Of course, we all know they're led by the sophomore Donovan Mitchell. This Utah Jazz team has great potential to be able to go far, but they have to get past their first opponent and ideally get past the Warriors. And that just sounds like a nightmare for anybody. When you think about it, it's like, yeah, you just got to beat the Rockets and you got to beat the Warriors, and then, hey, you can go really far in this tournament, right? Well, it's not going to be that easy, but they have had some young guys on their team stepping up to really fill in their roster, and they're a solid 5 starting unit. But against this Houston Rockets team, we know they had a pretty embarrassing performance last season in the postseason, and they would hope not to repeat that situation. But basically, if we're looking at that, look at the little spyglass, we're not really seeing a lot of opportunity for this team to be able to surpass and upset the Rockets here. It almost seems inevitable that they will come to a short ending in their postseason soon. But they do have some hope for potential because they are a solid unit that can play good defense from time to time. And like I said, some young guys really stepping up, like Mr. Grayson Allen, who's been really turning it on, like pretty much producing like 25 plus points many times coming off the bench. This is going to be something they're going to need desperately. The bench must perform. So Mr. Grayson Allen, you will have to continue your performance, or we're going to need some other guys on your roster to perform as well. I expect this team to be able to put up a little more of a fight than they did last time around against the Rockets, but ultimately I think the Rockets should be able to hold them steady. Now, Utah against any other opponent, like I said, they should be able to hang in there. I don't expect them to get knocked off with ease, but the thing is, how are they going to guard 3 ball most of the time and continue to produce, at least match up against 3 balls, will be the main question. So watching out here, if they are able to get past the Rockets, then that should be able to tell you that they have a good chance too against the Warriors if that's who they come to play. All right, let's continue on, my friends. The next team we're going to have to talk about is going to be the Denver Nuggets, number 2 team, right? The number 2 seed here. This is a team that should ideally be able to make it to the Western Conference Finals. Their first opponent will be the San Antonio Spurs, And ideally, this is a matchup they should be able to win, but we don't know how they're going to be. This is a very, very fresh team to the postseason. Never been to the postseason before with this unit. So it's a new experience to see these guys in a series. But of course, they got to go up against the Spurs, and we all know how that could be with Mr. Greg Popovich. He's pretty much really comfortable in series. So it'll be an interesting test for these Denver Nuggets just to get past the first round. But they are pretty strong and, got a lot of depth on their team, and I think they will put up a good performance here. And ideally, I think when they get to the second round, whether it's Portland, Oklahoma City, they should be able to lead the way as well. But we just don't know who's going to step up for this team, really. There's a lot of guys who can, but we're going to see who's going to be the main guy who really shows up in the playoffs for this unit. That's going to be really interesting. Overall, defensively, they're very strong, and they should continue to be strong. And the main thing here is when it comes to being able to shoot the three ball, I don't know if they really have any, depth really on this roster to be able to shoot the three ball at will and be able to compete against those teams that shoot the three. So that's what's going to be worrisome for me if they make it to the Western Conference Finals, say against the Warriors or the Rockets. I feel like that's where they'll end up slipping up and not being able to make it to the final. Who knows, maybe they get lucky and end up playing against the Jazz. But even then, I don't even know if I could get to be able to push the button to say, go ahead, Denver. But they'll be the most interesting team, in my opinion, to see what they are made of, since they are going to be a contender, ideally, for the years to come. Ideally. All right, their opponent, of course, is the San Antonio Spurs. San Antonio, the most interesting team, in my opinion, this season. Not necessarily in the postseason, but for this season. Reason why, of course, we knew they blew up their roster, and once again, they were able to make it to the postseason. That's 22 years in a row. That's really great. In fact, that's incredible. Who would have ever thought it, that a team like this is able to have so much success? And I see them having great success in this postseason if Greg Popovich is able to figure them out and gain good consistency from their units. They don't have a big depth, when you think about it. They can't really go into that second lineup and produce a lot. They got some guys who can perform, but ultimately this team just doesn't really have a whole lot that's going to be eye-opening for you. They're going to lead off their two big men, as we know, Aldridge and DeRozan, but they're going to need some good guard play as well from their other guards. Expect a lot of guys on this team to step up. The main thing, though, we have to see is how they play defense, and that's something that is going to be really key for them. And I think we will see some big performances in this postseason from the defensive side, and then hopefully the offensive side will take care of business. Expect this team to be strong at home and ideally be able to sneak off one road win. This is a very interesting matchup against Denver. As we said, Denver is very fresh, and I think San Antonio has a good chance here to be able to sneak away with a win on the road and lock it down and keep their home court standing and be able to sneak out of this series in a 6-game winning series. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if there is any underdog team that I think can pull it off right now, I think I'd have to give it to the Spurs. So otherwise, anything else might be a little bit of a surprise. But watch out for the Spurs. I think whoever they play, doesn't matter if it's the Rockets, doesn't matter if it's the Warriors, they will be competitors in any series, in my opinion, because they are able to adapt. And of course, we know Greg Popovich is able to turn things around really quick. And this time around, they don't have any lackluster team going in there. They actually have a pretty finite team. Not really strong with a lot of depth, but just finite enough. Okay. Last two teams in the Western Conference, we know, yes, it is time for you guys to finally do something in the playoffs. The Portland Trailblazers are going to be an interesting team, and I expect some success from them this time around. However, of course, with the injuries that have come up to them recently, it's going to be very interesting to see how they do perform in the postseason. Going up against the Thunder is going to be a tough, tall task, but ideally they should be okay if they're able to lock it down, win a game on the road, win a game at, home as well, right? So I think Portland should be all right here, but I don't know if they're going to advance. They're the team that, of course, they have to prove it to us before anything. But moving onwards, if they're able to get by the Thunder, which I think is like a 50-50 call at this point, right? But I still edge the Thunder a little more. I think they could have some good success in the second round, whether it's Denver or San Antonio, and even against the final teams, against, Golden State or even Houston. I think they could pretty much hang tight. We've seen them have success against the regular season. I don't think they'll be able to beat them in the series, but I think they could find a way to hang tight. The real question is, how is Mr. Cantor going to do down, up, low down in the post, and how's the rest of the unit going to perform? They're pretty much well balanced, but the main thing here is they're going to have to score all the time, really. That's going to be the main thing for these guys, is just score, 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 and keep up the fight. Okay, the last team in the Western Conference is of course the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Thunder should be able to be a very intriguing team as well. I think they will be good. I don't know if they will be great. Ideally, these two guys are going to have to step up. I expect a better performance than they did last season. But this is going to be a very interesting team. They don't have a lot of depth, but I feel like they could go pretty far here if they are able to just do better than they did last year. Make a little more consistency, don't make any lackluster mistakes like they've done in the past, and really just have their two main guys step up and take control of their units while they're on the court, and making sure they can play good defense is going to be the main thing for this team. Keep up the scoring, don't do any crazy moves like they have done in the past, just play consistency, and do a solid job. This team, I feel like, can compete against any team. Any team. So they are a very dangerous team moving forward. It doesn't matter who they play. I feel like they can compete, but we've seen them throughout the whole entire year, and they've just kind of been a little bit funky there, a little bit funky here, but they have been able to prove to us that they can be competitors against any opponent. So Oklahoma City, doesn't matter who they play. Ideally, they can edge out Portland this time around, and who knows how they will do the rest of the way, but watch out for these guys. I don't expect them to go far, but they do have the potential. All right, that pretty much wraps up the Western Conference. Right now, we will be back soon with some Eastern Conference highlights as well, right? Depends which one you get to see first. Well, enjoy your day, and we'll see you next time.